Welcome back to the Storycraft Society. In this week's episode, we're going to be finishing up our Red Brand hideout with some scatter terrain like dungeon doors and beds. Welcome to the channel. It is Thursday, and that means I am excited to finish up our Red Brand set. We've been doing this over the last couple of weeks with dungeon tiles, cave tiles, and the scatter terrain video from last week. All of that will be linked in the video description below. We've been building this set off of a layout that we actually released and put on DriveThruRPG, so you can head over there and check that out, or check that linked in the video description below. But now that we're ready to get it finished, we've got a couple more things. No dungeon is complete without doors, so we're going to be working on that today, as well as it's always good to have some grimy bandit beds to put down into your dungeons if you need those too. So we're gonna get those pieces knocked out. Let's get crafting. So to craft our beds, we're gonna start with just some basic XPS insulation foam. I'm just taking scrap here. I am gonna take a miniature and kind of measure out so that I get the right size. But take a lesson from Jeremy from Black Magic Craft here. You don't need to measure everything to make everything perfect. And a good thing to mention when doing any build is think about what you want the aesthetic of the build to be. In this example, I'm just trying to make it like grimy bandit beds, so I'm not gonna try to make everything perfect. So what I did was I cut the flat part out. This is gonna be where the person would be laying. I cut it just to a kind of generic thickness. I would say maybe a 1/4 inch thick. And then I'm going to take and cut out just what I think a good shape for the headboard would be. There's a ton of different shapes that you could do. In this particular example, I will eventually show you the design that I'm going for, but I'm going for a more curved headboard look with two kind of posts coming up out of either side. So once I have that done, then I'm going to start working now on the footboard. I'm not actually sure if that's what it's called, but the footer of the bed, and I'm going to cut that also to mimic the headboard. So the design that I'm going for these is that they have horizontal planks kind of running across the headboard. So I'm going to take my hobby knife and score those planks in. As soon as I do that, then I'm going to take my pencil and widen those grooves. I'm going to do that both on the headboard and the footer of the bed. And then I'm going to take my pencil and knock off any hard edges on the outside. Now I'm going to take a toothpick and I'm going to push those up in either side of the headboard. This one adds strength to the piece, which is always nice on these kind of little fiddly foam bits. And also it will look like those posts that I wanted in the design. Once I fit them in, I'm going to cut them off so they're nice and smooth on the top, that they're not like 2 points sticking up. Reinsert them back into the piece of foam. It'll look like that. And then we're going to do the exact same thing to the other side. Now we're going to move on to a plastic wire brush. And I actually use this and go with the grain of the wood, but this is what's getting me my wood texture. You can be real aggressive with the plastic wire brush, and then you get something that looks pretty good, pretty convincing wood texture. So now we're going to take and glue the whole piece together using hot glue. I like hot glue here. You could use tacky glue, but it just takes longer. Hot glue is a lot quicker. And then just like that, you have your bed put together. Now I'm going to make kind of like nasty bandit blankets that are draped over top of the bed. I don't want this to look like a super finished, nice bed. And I'm actually taking quilted paper towels here because I like it because it looks pretty convincing as a scale, like almost like a quilt. So I'm going to take watered down PVA glue, soak the paper towel up as much of it as possible, and then I'm just going to take and drape this over top of the bed. This really doesn't take a whole lot of, I would say, skill. It just takes patience and kind of being willing to tease it around until it looks good. You're going to want to let that dry. It'll take a while. And then double check to see if your miniature fits. Mine does. Awesome. And we're ready to move on to paint. So for paint, we're going to be taking and doing our Black Magic Craft base coat first, as always, to strengthen up the foam. And then now for this paint job, I'm going to be doing something a little different. I wanted the wood to look aged and antiqued, and antiqued aged wood actually doesn't look brown, it looks more gray. So I'm going to take a really watered down honey brown and go over all of the wood first. The next thing that I'm going to do is take a dark brown wash. I'm using Agrax Earthshade from Citadel, but you could use any that you wanted. You could even make your own if you wanted. But as soon as you've done that, then you're going to take and do a dry brushing, and I actually did a pretty aggressive dry brushing of gray all over the piece, and that's going to give it a really nice aged old look. Once you have the wood all painted up, it's time to move on to the blankets. You could do the blankets honestly in any color that you wanted. I just chose to go with this cream color to make it really simple on myself. And I'm gonna paint out all of the blankets in this kind of light cream color. And then as soon as I'm finished doing that, then I'm going to take and move on to a sepia wash. I'm using Seraphim Sepia from Citadel, but I'm going to take and then put that all over the blankets. And what that's going to do is, one, it's going to bring out the quilted texture that the paper towel gave me, which is really nice, but also it's going to make the blanket look kind of grungy and gross. That way it really fits the aesthetic of these nasty bandit beds that I was going for. I made these other beds a long time ago, and so you can just see that really what's in your head is the only thing limiting your creativity in a project like this. All right, so to make doors for the set, we're gonna actually take, and the first thing is just measure the openings that you have that will allow you to fit doors. Once you've done that, you're going to cut down, basically scrap XPS insulation foam into the right size. For me, it was 1 inch by 1 inch. And then you're going to cut the general shape of your door out. Once you've done that, you're going to move on to cutting the frame of the door out using a hobby knife. Then go in and widen those lines with a pencil. As soon as that's done, we're going to be moving on to taking and scoring the wood planks of the doors. I'm going for like a vertical wood plank look. So I'm going to do that. Again, widen it with a pencil. And then we're going to take our plastic wire brush and we're going to start scratching along the surface to get our wood grain texture on the door. Now we're going to do very much like we did with our ledges last week. We're going to carve a brick texture, or a brick pattern, should I say, into the outside of the doors. Once you have all of the stonework done, you're going to take and use a tinfoil ball to get our nice stone texture all over the whole door, and then use a pencil to re-widen all of your mortar lines. Now the doors could stand perfectly fine just like this, but I really wanted to have some iron banding that went across the wood planks just to kind of break the wooden look up a little bit. So what I'm going to do is actually just take a piece of cardstock and I'm going to cut rectangles out of it to match the right size for the iron banding. Cut those into little tiny strips, and then as soon as the strips are cut, we're just going to glue those using Eileen's tacky glue onto the front of the door. Let those dry. Once those are dry, we're going to hit them with our Black Magic Craft base coat. Just one quick little note while I'm waiting for the Mod Podge to dry on these doors. You want to make sure that you're not overcrafting when you're doing big builds like this. You can see this in the Glamour Hideout build that we did. You can see this in this build, obviously. The projects are so big and so vast, and you're making so many tiles and so many caves, that if you focus on all the little tiny details, you're going to end up burning yourself out because you just can't get all of it done, or it's overwhelming or whatever. So like, take this door for example. I'm not gonna worry about putting handles on the doors. I need it from first glance for my players to see that it looks like a door, but I'm not worried about getting everything perfect. I'm not putting the rivets in the banding on the door. All that stuff is secondary, and if I try to make it a display quality piece, it just won't get done because I'll get bogged down with the details. Keep it simple, and then you're gonna end up with cool terrain that your players are gonna love, and they're not gonna focus on those little tiny details that you as a crafter might get bogged down by. Let's go build more terrain. We're not going to do anything crazy with our paint scheme here. It's going to be the exact same one that we've been using on all of our previous parts of this build, our dungeon tiles and that sort of thing. So if you want to actually see more in-depth talk about that, you can check the earlier videos in this series. But the basic idea is a dark brownish gray, a medium gray, and a light gray. For the doors, we're going to be using a medium brown and then a tan. We're just going to paint out the front of all of the doors in the medium brown first. Then as soon as we have that done, we're going to be taking and doing a dry brushing over the top with a tan. Very simple paint job, but it's going to look great. We're going to paint out all of the banding on the doors in a flat black. Just be careful not to get it on the wood that you've already painted. Now I was ready to do the rivets. I'm going to use lead belcher here, which is just a metallic silver from Citadel. But I actually use a sharp pencil and dip that into a little bit of paint that I put onto my palette. And I can actually dot and make the rivets, and because of the paint being bubbled up on the end of the pencil, it stands up a little bit. It makes the rivets look really good, super simple, no extra effort. All right, now it's time for the best part of any crafting project. We get to see what our work looks like when it's finished. Let's get to some glamour shots. Another set from our Lost Mine of Phandelver series is in the books. Thank you so much to everybody who's been watching these, who's been crafting along with me. It really, really means the world. I can't say that enough. If you enjoy these videos, please leave me a like or a comment down below. Let me know what you think. What was your favorite part of the set? What's something that maybe you would have added that I didn't? That would be awesome to hear. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell to know when our videos go live every week. Check out the Goblin Arrows Ambush series and Glamour Hideout series if you haven't checked those out. The playlists are on the channel to watch through those. We have adventures that we've released, well, technically 2 parts of one adventure. Both of those are on Drive-Thru RPG. You can check those out as well. And until we get into our next set, I'll be wishing it was Thursday. I'll see you.